Right now, there are already robots in the world that can carry heavy boxes in warehouses, assist doctors, clean homes, and even hold simple conversations with people. But so far, there is one main reason they have not replaced most human workers. They are simply too expensive. If we look at human history, almost every major invention has followed the same path. At first, it was so expensive that only a small number of people could afford it. This happened with cars, computers, mobile phones, and even televisions. But as time passed, production became more efficient. Competitors entered the market, and prices began to fall rapidly. What was once considered a luxury gradually became something found in almost every home. It is entirely possible that robots will follow the same path. One random day, the owner of any company could sit down and calculate the costs. They can hire a person who requires a salary, paid sick leave, vacations, insurance, and many other expenses. Or they can buy a robot that costs less in the long run, works almost around the clock, never gets tired, and never asks for a raise. For a business owner, the answer may become obvious. At first, one company will make this decision, then 10, then 1,000. Before long, it will begin happening all over the world. If one factory cuts its costs by using robots, every competing factory will have to do the same to stay competitive. That is how the biggest changes could begin. Robots are already starting to replace people in physical jobs, and many people will say, "That doesn't affect me because I work with my brain." But the rapid development of artificial intelligence may soon show that it is not only physical jobs that are at risk. Robots will learn to analyze documents, help write software, create designs, translate texts, and even prepare complex financial reports. To be fair, artificial intelligence is already becoming quite good at many of these tasks. At that point, people will do what they have always done during economic crises. They will agree to work for lower wages. But this time, that may not be enough. Even if a person accepts lower pay, a robot still never gets tired, never gets sick, never arrives late, never quits, and can work day and night with almost no interruptions. Humanity could then face a very unusual problem for the first time. If robots perform most of the work, who will earn money? And if people stop receiving salaries, who will buy all the products that robots produce? At first glance, it may seem that companies only benefit, but they could quickly realize that they are capable of producing millions of cars, phones, and televisions, while the number of customers who can actually afford them continues to shrink. For the first time in history, the problem would no longer be that humanity cannot produce enough goods, but that fewer and fewer people can afford to buy them. Governments would have to search for new solutions. Some countries might begin paying every citizen a universal basic income, money that people receive simply because they are citizens of their country. At first, this may sound like the perfect life. You no longer have to work, yet money still arrives. However, another question would quickly arise. If people no longer need to work, what will they actually do with their lives? If work is no longer necessary, the very meaning of success may gradually change. Perhaps people will spend much more time doing what they truly love, but there will also be those who feel completely useless. Of course, these changes would not affect only work. They could also transform the way people build their lives. Even today, many people postpone starting a family because of unstable jobs, expensive housing, and uncertainty about the future. If finding a well-paid job becomes even more difficult, this trend may only grow stronger. More and more people could delay having children or decide not to have them at all. As a result, populations may begin to decline. At the same time, robots will not remain only in factories. They will also become part of ordinary households. A home robot may clean the house, cook dinner, or do the laundry. In a few decades, people may find it strange that humans once cleaned floors themselves, cooked every meal by hand, or spent hours standing in line at grocery stores. In the same way, today, we find it surprising that there was once a world without washing machines or the internet. But as comfort increases, so will our dependence on robots. Today, an internet outage is mostly an inconvenience. In the future, however, the failure of millions of robots could literally bring entire cities to a standstill. 100 years from now, many modern professions may seem just as unfamiliar as the job of a lamplighter, who once walked through the streets every evening, lighting lamps by hand. In addition, if robots perform almost all work, people may gradually lose many important skills. Today, very few people remember phone numbers because smartphones store them for us. We rarely do calculations in our heads because calculators are always available. Over time, people may simply stop learning how to do many things themselves because there is almost no longer any need for those skills. For decades, people have feared that robots would one day take over the world. But perhaps reality will turn out to be much simpler. They will not conquer the world by force. We will gradually hand over more and more work to them because it will be faster, cheaper, and more efficient. At that point, everything will depend on whether humanity can find a new role for itself in a world where working is no longer necessary.